Hello everyone and welcome back to the 25-day series. In the last episode we were tagged by Rick with a forfeit of scaring 3 players with the tag before passing it on for real, so that is something that we need to deal with in this episode. We've also got a skelly spawner that needs to be turned into an XP and bone farm, and a storage system that needs a bit of design and decoration. We've also got that underground village to populate with villagers, but you'll have to wait for later in the episode to find out how successful that turns out to be. This will be the second from last episode in this 25-day series. The next episode will be 20 players versus the end in the form of a short cinematic film. But as we're wrapping up this series, let's take a quick look at some of the amazing builds in the shopping districts. This is days 226 to 250 on the Shadowlands SMP. As day 226 came to an end, I made my way over to the tag building just to check first of all that my name was in the pot, but it already is. I think Rick must have done that for me, so thanks for that. But secondly, it was just to check out the rules because I needed to know how to proceed with tagging people myself. And look at this nether tunnel, that's just awesome. After jumping through the portal, I made my way up because it was time for me to sneak up on someone and give them the scariest fright of their life. Well, I was going to try to give them the scariest fright of their life. My first target was Goldbug, but for love nor money, I could not find a way to get into her base and get at her. Then we just ended up standing on either side of her window. So I waved the tag at her and she didn't seem too scared at all, to be honest. She just kind of laughed at me, I'm pretty sure. So I told her,
"I'm coming for you."
And I carried on chasing after her, but it was fruitless. I just had no idea what I was doing. It was a completely pointless exercise. How the hell are you supposed to scare someone when you can't even get near them? But then Goldbug descended to the lower levels of her base and I saw her name just behind the door, so the chase was on. Well, she ran away, so I think that counts as scaring her. Back to the portal we go. And I very quickly found myself in another awesome nether tunnel. What I could only describe as an Alice in Wonderland type environment. It was very strange, very weird. I came through the portal, there was a drop down. I saw this barrel here and grabbed one of the potions out of it. This can only be Ori, and it turns out I was right, it was Ori. And when I say Alice in Wonderland, you'll see what I mean here. We start off very cramped and enclosed and claustrophobic, and then we jump down, float down this area here, and it all opens up and you go from being in this world where you're the big thing to being in this world where you're the smallest thing. And I had to search around, but actually Ori wasn't anywhere to be found. So I picked up this trident and then headed back because I needed to find someone to actually scare for the second time. I found myself at Bubble and Electra's nether tunnel, which was looking pretty cool, and I just double checked to make sure that Bubble was online, and sure enough, success. So I made my way to the end of the nether tunnel, popped through the portal and came across this amazing, beautiful house. Look at the level of detail on this. And I went in search of the elusive Bubble the Shark, but I need to make sure that I didn't actually tag Bubble, just gave the little scare that was needed. And sure enough, Bubble was there, and I said boo, and Bubble just didn't seem to give a crap. I did a little hit and ran off, and I thought, well, I said the boo, that counts as a scare, and I moved on. But it wasn't actually Bubble that answered, it was Crafty Kazza that said eek, and I thought, well, does that count as my third scare? I don't think so. Let's go and try and get Ori over at Story Industries. So I sneaked up to the tower where Rory was hiding, and she was just looking down at her feet, and I figured that she was AFK, and that kind of goes against the rules when it comes to tagging. So I just called out, "Ori, come out to play.
Warriors, come out to play.
But she didn't, and I still had one more person to scare before I could actually tag someone, so I figured I'd go and find someone else. And I came across Jedi Pete over at Jedi Pete's base, which looks awesome. Look at the domed roof on that building to the right, by the way. And again, Jedi Pete did not seem scared at all. He just sort of ran past me and then ignored me and then kind of looked around like he couldn't see me. I felt like he was ghosting me. So I said, "Rah!" Jedi Pete just said hi. Apparently he was one with the Force and the Force is with him. With 3 scares under my belt, I made my way back to the Nether portal, but it took a while to transport me through it, and I thought, nope, not going to risk it, so I stepped back out. And I did this a few more times because I was genuinely just so scared of getting done by the portal glitch and losing all of my stuff, especially the tag book. I didn't want to have to rewrite that again. But eventually I made it through and I was back in the Nether, and I made my way over to Shanteg. This was the final person that I would have to get with the tag, so I snuck up on Shanteg and just from behind gave a little boop, and then there we go. Shanteg is tagged. Now that I'd offloaded the tag, I could get back to building stuff, and the first thing that I wanted to do was turn this skelly spawner into a farm because I wanted the bones for bone meal. So I got to work putting the water streams in place, building up the walls around the outside, blocking the whole thing in, and then I got to work on the collection system. I also built some stairs going up so that I could find the entrance to this easily, and I built some stairs on the inside so it was just a nice quick path from the entrance to the cave mouth down to the skelly spawner. And here it is in full swing, giving me bones and bows and arrows and XP and all that other good stuff. From digging out the area to get the skelly spawner in place, I'd actually come across some valuable ores, and I thought, well, yeah, let's add this to the pile, and my pile of riches was just growing. And then I decided I was gonna need some wood, so I ran up to make a tree farm on the outskirts of Brick's black wall cube thingy that is built. I built a little pathway system and just put some oak trees and some birch trees, used some bone meal, which sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but that was fine. I'm sure they've grown naturally. And then I got to work chopping down some of these trees because I wanted the wood. When I got back to base, I saw a baby glow squid and it was the cutest thing that I'd ever seen, but I had more things to admire, and I got my spyglass out and had a look at my pile of riches, and it was looking glorious from this distance. But the next thing that I wanted to do was to go down to our villager area and just start carving out some areas where they might live. I might build some workstations here, put some beds in here, whatever the case may be. But first I needed to design it, so I started hollowing out the sides. I made good use of these mine shafts that already existed, and I took down the one that I said in the last episode I was going to take down because we just didn't need it. I built up another humble abode using the resources that I had to hand, did some detailing in the walls so that it didn't look too flat, but it definitely needed some modification further down the line. And then I stood back for a while and admired the area that the villagers were going to live in before going out and capturing our first prisoners, villagers. Now that I'd found some unwilling volunteers to take part in the clinical trials that I had planned, I led them down the steps and all the way through to the new villager area. I trapped them in a boat, threw a splash potion of weakness at them, gave them each a golden apple and waited for them to turn. On day 238, I thought I'd show them who's boss and hit one of these villagers, and then I decided to break the boat and release them. They were trapped in this small area for now, but it wasn't long before I released them into their new home. But they didn't seem too willing to comply. They didn't seem to want to go over to the area that I'd made for them with all of the houses and beds, and there was a farm over there, so I thought maybe they just don't like the house design. I built another quick one, stuck a bed in it, and they still didn't want to come over and live in the humble abodes that I built for them, which I thought was really rude, but they just didn't seem to care. I did wonder if my bed was getting in the way, and they were linking to that, so I got rid of it. But when I went back to them, they were still standing in the corner like lemmings, and I'd almost given up hope. And then I remembered the trick that you can use with job blocks to entice villagers over to a certain area. So I broke both of these composters, took them a little bit closer and placed them down in the hopes that one of them at least would link to it, but they didn't, and they just stood there staring at each other instead. They really are so stupid. I decided to feed them because I thought maybe I can get them to breed, and then the offspring I could use and then kill the adults, but that didn't really work either. They just didn't quite seem in the mood. I decided to abandon the villagers altogether and come back to them at another time, and got to work building up a spawning room because I didn't actually have one. I wanted an area that was going to hold all of my important armor and tools, and a bed there for me, stick an ender chest in here, that sort of thing, just somewhere where I could respawn and hit the ground running quite quickly. But you'll notice in this clip that I have 90 levels, and in the next I have none, and that is because I died to a portal glitch. The next few days were wasted searching through the nether for my items in the hope that we would come across them, and I had a great amount of help here from Rebel, who was amazing and led the charge and gave me some backup gear to use on the search. And you'll see from this clip that we travelled thousands and thousands and thousands of blocks. But it was unsuccessful. We didn't actually end up finding my stuff. So, like any other player would do, I spent the next few days building up some more diamond armor, getting a load more levels, and enchanting it with all of the stuff that I needed to play the game safely. Once I'd finished at the enchanting table, I knew that I needed to go and buy some more books, but I didn't have the diamonds to go shopping. So instead, I mined out my pile of treasures for the diamonds and all of the other valuables in there, which turned out to be quite a lot. We had raw copper, redstone, lapis, gold, diamonds, nether quartz, all of the good stuff that we were going to need, but I now had 10 blocks of diamonds to be able to go out and buy things like efficiency 5 and mending. And for some reason, there were 2 boxes for mending. I'm not quite sure why they were here, but they were both priced at the same amount, so I just grabbed some mending books from either one of these barrels. I was of course very sad that not only had my pile of treasures gone, but I'd lost all of my items, lost 3 days trying to recover it. But when we were going through the nether, I did come across a lot of ancient debris, enough to make full netherite gear, and as I descended down from my XP farm, I just admired the work that I'd done. I put my backup chest plate away and stood on my bed and listened to this music to try and chill myself out. But I was still very sad and I needed some cheering up, so I went over to the post office and had a look in my post box at all of the wonderful things and gifts that people had left for me, including a build-it-yourself snowman, which I was very pleased about. We were going to end up with a new friend, so I decorated the inside of my spawn room with all of these items, and I built my snowman friend. He was going to live here and smile at me every time that I respawned, but as I went up to one end of the cavern, I realised that he could just disappear down these stairs, so I blocked him in, and then disaster struck. My unnamed snowman friend barely lasted 30 seconds, so I thought I'd go and help a real friend out. Al was in need of some sea lanterns and dark prismarine, so I dropped some off for her, and then here comes a bouncing owl, which I didn't know that owls could jump, but apparently they can. Al gave me a spyglass and some ink sacs as payment for the dark prismarine and the sea lanterns, and then she had something that she wanted to show me that she'd built for Scooby. But I left the shopping districts and I came back to base because it occurred to me this entire 25 days we've not actually done anything base related or made any progress, and I really wanted to do that. So the first thing that I did was build a potion brewing setup. The next thing was to build up our pile of treasures, and then I got to work on the design for the sorting system. And I'd just like to point out that stairs being placed upside down are a pain in the arse. You have to get them just right, especially when you're looking up at them. The next thing that I did was to start to take down Lady Demon's temporary barrier that she'd put up here, because I wanted to get to work slabbing off this area to expand the sorting system. I was pretty happy with the design. I thought that the white and the black worked well together. I like the sea lanterns, and I like the detailing with things like trapdoors, which isn't usually something that I would do, but I'm really trying to expand my horizons when it comes to building. And on day 249 I went back to our villager area just to see if they were going to be a bit more compliant. They weren't, but they both seemed to gather as close to this wall as possible, and it occurred to me maybe they're linking to Rick's iron farm. I was going to have a chat with Rick about that later, but for now I wanted to build a passive farm here in the base, so I got to work building an auto kelp farm to solve our fuel crisis. Now that that was running nicely in the background, I got to work on the next layer of the sorting system room, and I decided to go with glass on the bottom so that you could see all the way down into the cavern below, including the pile of riches which you can just see off to the corner there. I really like the design of this, it works out quite well. I just went across with glass all the way, lit it up with sea lanterns from underneath so they lit both layers at the same time, and then I got to work on a bridge going over our nice pond into the upper level of the storage system that we're working on at the moment. The final thing that we were going to do for this episode was fall down into the cavern below, because, well, I haven't actually fallen in this episode yet. It wouldn't be a good Rainy Grinch episode unless I did. But after that, I carried on working on the outskirts of this upper layer, just working on the same theme that we had down below, which is to use prismarine blocks and some sea lanterns all the way around the outside. And it was looking pretty damn good. I have one more episode planned for this series, but it's not going to be your usual 25-day style series. No, in this one we're going to get 20 players together and go and take the End Dragon on for the first time. But I wasn't actually there fighting and taking part in the fight, I was just there with a camera account. So I got some pretty cool shots. I'm going to gather some different perspectives from some of the different players and build one massive cinematic mashup End Dragon fight. It's going to be epic. Subscribe if you want to see that, and you'll get notified when that video comes out next week at Friday, 5:30 PM GMT. But for now, I'm going to leave this episode here. I really hope that you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't be afraid to leave a like. It really helps to support the channel, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya.